All right, everybody, we are back with another episode of the What's Next podcast. I'm your host, Levi Casada, and today I have two very special guests, actually. I'm going to introduce my co-host today. She's never been in front of the camera over here, but she is my ride and die, my partner in crime. Please welcome Andrea Martino. Woo! There we go. Well, there we go. You like that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, welcome to the podcast. You excited?
Absolutely.
All right.
Thanks so much for that great intro.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, a little bit about, we call her Dre, by the way. I'm going to call you Dre on this one, but
I don't rap.
a little bit about Dre real quick is, when I got into the business, she was a huge asset to me on learning everything that I possibly can, from, the CRM to learning how to sell. She was in sales. Well, she was so good at sales, but she really loved the marketing aspect and bringing a lot of value to our real estate community, to our sales team. So now she's like our marketing director, and she's out there full of knowledge, and she loves learning. And with that said, she's the one that set this up today. One of the best guests I'm going to have on this podcast for sure. We're going to get a lot of great information about affordable living in San Diego. Who knew that could actually happen? But we're going to talk about how. We're going to talk about when it's going to happen. And, without further ado, please welcome Rafael Perez. Woo-woo. All right, my man. This isn't your first podcast, is it?
It's my first podcast, but not my first interview. So.
Oh, well, awesome. Well, thank you for coming in on such a short notice. I think we set this up maybe a couple weeks ago, and that was, you're like, let's get this done. So let's jump right into it, if you don't mind. Can you give us a little bit of background, where you're from, kind of how you got into the industry, and we'll just go from there.
Yeah. So my name is, once again, Rafael Perez. I grew up in Santa Barbara, and I moved to San Diego half my life ago, back in '99, to go to San Diego State. And when I got close to graduating, it was 2004, and I thought of maybe I'd be a teacher, maybe I'd do something else, but real estate really just attracted me. I remember back when I was in 7th grade, my parents bought their first house, and the realtor was just not doing a good job. So I got on my bicycle, wrote down a bunch of addresses, and handed them to her. Turns out one of them was an expired listing. The sign had fallen over, was covered with leaves. I moved the leaves, wrote down the number. And that's the house my parents live in to this day. So I kind of got excited about real estate as a kid. And when I had the opportunity to pick a career, that's where I headed.
That's crazy that you saw that at such a young age, that there needed to be a difference in how real estate was happening, right? Yeah,
back then the MLS was a 3-ring binder, and she's like, "Oh, these are already. I've already called them. They're not going to work for your parents." And I'm like, "What about this one?" She's like, "It's not in my book." I'm like, "Well, I got a phone number and I got an address. Can you call it?"
Amazing.
Yeah, you were already in the movement of changing. Yeah. That's very cool. So you started young, went to college. Did you graduate with communications, or
No, so I graduated with sociology right around my 4th year of college. I said, actually, I'm looking at real estate. Went to go speak to my counselor, and she said, "Well, real estate doesn't require a college degree, does it?" I'm like, "No." She's like, "So just pick the major that's going to get out of here as quickly as possible." And we looked at my transcript, and she's like, "Sociology." I'm like, "Sociology it is."
Yeah. I did sociology for a little bit as well.
So
Same here.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. So then you graduated, you're kind of in that movement. Now, you've been in the industry for over a decade now.
20 years now.
Oh, over 2 decades. Wow, since 2004. Okay. And you're a part of other communities in real estate. Will you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I think my first leadership opportunity was I was chapter president of NAREP San Diego back in 2014, so a decade ago.
Woo woo! Shout out NAREP.
Yeah, right.
And that opened up a lot of other doors. I'm currently on the board at PSAR. I've been on that board multiple times, and also I'm currently board chair of the Casita Coalition, which we'll talk more about later.
Yeah. Well, cool. Let's jump right into it. Can you give us a little, so we're talking about the Assembly Bill 1033. I know that's, like we talked about, it's a little boring on saying that, but it's all about affordable living right now in California, because it's, as you can see, we're kind of in a drought.
Which is really exciting. Yeah.
Which is really exciting. How did this come about? Where did you see, and like, because you're a big part of this movement.
Yeah, I think I'll take a step back. Back in around 2018, I saw that state law in California was starting to change to make ADUs easier to build. And where I grew up in Santa Barbara, housing is not affordable. It hasn't been as far as I can remember.
Yeah.
Yet, in the neighborhood I grew up in, nobody kept cars in the garage. Those were all converted, mostly probably without permits. And I still had the garage door on a lot of those units in my neighborhood. But I saw that that's what made homeownership affordable, and that's what created affordable housing in a town where there was limited inventory and high prices, right? And it's sort of the scenario we're seeing today.
Right.
So when I saw all that changing, I went to PSAR and I talked to Rich, and I'm like, hey, can we write a grant to try to promote this and maybe, create some pre-approved plans or something to make this easier for homeowners? And he was super supportive. PSAR was supportive. So we wrote a grant to the National Association of Realtors. And ultimately, we participated with the coalition that created San Diego's first ADU handbook. So that's what kind of threw me into the ADU space. At the same time, the Casita Coalition was the organization that was actually behind, essentially being the architect of this ADU movement, of the ADU laws in California. And as they were looking to expand their footprint on the board with membership from Southern California, it was founded out of the Bay Area. My name bubbled up because I had done the work with PSAR on the grant and the ADU handbook, and I got recruited onto the board, and I'm currently the board chair. So fast forward, you bring a realtor onto a nonprofit housing board, and we're going to talk home ownership. As we were looking at whether ADU production was actually being equitable, one of the goals of the early laws was to create more equitable homeownership opportunities.
Right.
And one of the things we saw is that although ADUs were spread amongst all types of communities, all types of income levels, and across the state, it wasn't necessarily creating more diverse homeownership. It was really for people who already owned a home, who were building additional housing, subsidizing their retirement, providing housing for different generations, either parents or adult children returning from college with nowhere to live.
Yeah.
And
throw them in the ADU.
But it wasn't creating that home ownership. So we got to talking and said, well, what's the solution? What can work? And just like ADU law in California, it didn't come out of nowhere. We looked at best practices, or they looked at best practices all over the country and came up with solutions based on what's already working elsewhere, mostly the Northwest. This was no different. We looked at Oregon, Washington, Texas, New Jersey, and saw that in those states, ADUs were able to be built and sold separately as a condo, separate from the home. And we thought, well, there it is. Being able to separately convey your ADU is going to create some new homeownership opportunities, where literally the construction of an ADU will create a new homeownership opportunity at a more affordable price point than anything that's out there right now.
Right.
Getting built as new construction. So we took the concept and talked to some legislators and found one that was really excited about it. Assemblymember Phil Ting really connected with this concept because when he bought his first house, it was a duplex in San Francisco. Him and his brother bought it together. And as they grew older, they had different needs and priorities, so they were able to file a condo map on their duplex, and each brother kept a unit and were able to do as they needed with a unit going forward. So literally we got the author that had done it, the organization that had already looked at the best practices, and we moved forward with Assembly Bill 1033, which essentially removed the statewide ban on separate conveyance of ADUs. And that means that in ADU law and all the local ordinances across the state, it's written in there, you cannot sell this separate from the house. It was part of the law.
When ADU law was written the first time. Okay.
Yeah, so that was part of the, I guess I call it the negotiations, right? It was one of the things that got put in there. Like, all right, well, we'll loosen up ADU laws, but you can't sell them separate.
Yeah.
Well, time had passed and people saw that ADUs were a valuable solution, and we just thought it was the right time to try to repeal that ban. Essentially, and that's what AB 1033 does and did, is it repeals the statewide ban on separately selling an ADU.
I love that story because with how expensive it has, gotten to live in California and Southern California, San Diego specifically, we do see a lot more folks coming in and having shared ownership, investing in duplex and triplexes or multi-generational families. And so this is an awesome solution. And if you could share, when did this pass? And can any homeowner, take advantage of this opportunity now?
So going back to negotiations, right? When you pass a bill, it's rare that you write it and that's what gets passed at the end of the assembly line. So there was concerns. There was people that brought stuff up. There was different parts of the state that have different priorities. So one of the things that ultimately ended up in the bill is that the bill is an opt-in bill. So last year, in January, we started the legislative process, 2023. And by the end of the year, the governor had it on his desk and had signed the bill into law. Come January of this year, 2024, because the bill required that a local jurisdiction opt in, whether it's a county or a city, if they want to be able to sell ADUs separate from a single-family home as a condo, they need to opt in an ordinance. So to answer your question, can anybody do this? Hopefully, at some point, everybody can. Currently, you need your city or your county to adopt an ordinance to allow you to do so. The first city to fully adopt an ordinance, San Jose, California, has already done that. There's a lot of other cities that are at different stages in the process of evaluating whether they'll allow their community to do this. And we're hopeful that people will see the successes in the early adopters, and it'll create momentum and a movement to really get this adopted in the big cities and, essentially across the state.
Amazing. And I think earlier you mentioned that this is something that's already been done in other states outside of California. Could you touch a little bit on that?
Yeah, so when we were looking at best practices, Oregon, Washington, Texas, they never had a prohibition on separate conveyance. Okay. And they had ADU laws, which are very similar to the ones that we adopted here in California. We looked at their best practices, adopted it here. And because they never had that prohibition, people get creative with real estate, and people realize, well, I have this house and I have this ADU and I have this mortgage. If I eliminate one, I can eliminate the other and keep the third, right? So you take the single-family home that you raised your kids in. You no longer need a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. You have this 1,000-square-foot ADU in the backyard, single level, perfect for you. You want to retire, but you're working to pay your mortgage, and you just feel stuck. And you look at your backyard and think, well, if I could only cash out on one of these two structures, I'd be good. Mm-hmm. So people got creative and started selling ADUs as condos. And what people always ask is, wait, do you still have a house and then a condo? What happens is you have a single-family home, and then you have an ADU. They're all on one lot. Once you file a condo map, the single-family home turns into a condo, and the ADU turns into a condo, Condo A and Condo B.
Oh, okay. So it's not a residential or a single-family?
Both are condos.
Both are condos.
They can be detached condos, but they're condos.
Got it.
And what that does is allows the homeowner to then choose, well, I can sell the 3-bedroom, 2-bath I no longer need anymore, and they may choose to sell it to a family member, an adult child, or just to the general market. And what we've seen in Oregon and Washington, where this is a lot more prevalent, is they could take the proceeds from that sale and then pay off the mortgage, live mortgage-free without having to relocate, go to a new community, find a new grocery store, make new friends, right? It allows people to age in place, get out of the rat race, pay off their mortgage, and
and create generational wealth for them. It's
absolutely.
So
well, that was the question I was thinking about, because as I was driving over today, I was thinking about this because I've had a family a friend of ours that lived in the front house because the gentleman in the back was widowed. He's older, so he is living in the ADU. However, now those people have moved out. Now that, I was passing the house today and it was getting kind of redone probably for the next renter. But if he didn't want to rent it and he wanted to use this bill with the, 1033, so it turns, now he was selling the primary resident, not his ADU in the back, but it makes sense now that both pieces will be condos.
Yeah. So you file a condo map, both turn into condos, and now they have separate APNs. They have an HOA, a mini HOA, CCNRs, rules of the road that kind of govern.
Who collects the HOA?
Yeah. That was
So
next
it's,
question.
Part of setting up a condo map, this isn't a DIY kind of thing. But
That's good to know.
you might DIY and owner build your ADU, but don't DIY owner build your CCNRs, right? There's attorneys that are experts in this that have done thousands of these. Work with one of them. First, you need to call your mayor, call your board of supervisors, and tell them.
First things first.
Yeah, let's start this. I was gonna say let's
opt-in.
roadmap this whole this whole process.
What does the community, what do real estate agents, what anybody interested in making this happen in San Diego, what needs to happen? What do they need to do or can do?
Right. So I think first and foremost, people need to realize what this does and what it doesn't do. There's, as with any new ordinance, there's people that are for and people that are against, right? So, even here in San Diego, I've had conversations with people who you would think are against something like this. And I think once people realize, oh, okay, this doesn't go and create things that aren't possible to be built, right? ADU law is already there. If you can build it, you can build it. If you can't build it, you can't build it.
Yeah, that's not changing.
Yeah, adopting this doesn't change any of that. All it changes is who can occupy that unit. Is it a renter or can an owner occupy it and own that unit, right? You're literally just changing the ownership structure, the physical structure, what can get built in communities, what can get built in neighborhoods, all the things people worry about. None of that's changing. None of that would change. It's literally just allowing somebody to own it versus rent it.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest things that we hear in the community. It's this opposition of like, this is going to change the landscape completely. But it's like, already, we've been moving towards making ADU build-outs more accessible to the community because of the lack of inventory. So, yeah, it's right on the money that's not changing.
So I think anyone that's going to go out and advocate for this should just get a basic understanding of what it does, what it doesn't do.
Yeah.
After that, the next step is really going and promoting the benefits, right? So what does adopting an ADU ordinance for homeownership do? Well, in the areas we talked about, the Northwest, these ADU condos tend to sell for 40 to 60% of what a single-family home in that exact same neighborhood sells for.
Wow.
So to keep things simple, let's call it $1 million house is your average single-family home in a neighborhood, right? You're looking at, just about anything within a 5-mile radius is going to be in that price point. And you now give the opportunity for somebody to get into that neighborhood for half, 2/3 of that price point, right? There may be parents who want to send their kids to a specific school, but they can't afford a single family home. They may want to get a condo, but they have a dog, they need a yard, right? Like an ADU condo is sort of that happy medium that gives people just about everything they want at a price point that's more affordable. And sure, you're living in a smaller space, but I think people, especially in areas where I may not have a huge yard, but I'm a 5-minute drive to Balboa Park.
Yeah, they're outdoor living. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, no, and I mean, whether it's parents or just any individual that's renting in San Diego and has built a life here and just keeps getting more and more expensive, and now it's like there's an opportunity to own in San Diego. That's incredible. And any parents who worry, how will my kids be able to afford a life here? This is so powerful.
So first step is really just understanding the benefits, what it is, what it isn't. Next is figure out who represents you. Do you live in a city like San Diego or La Mesa or Chula Vista, or do you live in an unincorporated area of the county like Spring Valley or Bonita? And then so you realize, are you represented by a council member or a supervisor? Next step is reach out to them, say, hey, I live here in this community. You're my representative. Especially if you're a real estate professional, that you can share the challenges in the market. There's limited inventory. The prices haven't come down. Rates are nowhere near where they were for the last forever many years.
Yeah.
And, it's tough out there for anyone trying to become a homeowner. San Diego consistently is one of the most unaffordable markets in the country. And when you look at all the solutions being put forth, rarely do they ever even scratch the surface of homeownership. Affordable housing for rent, new construction for rent, high rise for rent. Mm-hmm. Rare is it that you see anything that's got a for sale sign on it, especially in the urban areas of San Diego or just California in general, right? Anywhere in California is same story, different city. So, letting them know, hey, there's this great opportunity. Assembly Bill 1033 allows this to be possible. It would benefit so many other people that I work with, so many of the homeowners out there that are just stuck, lacking inventory, lacking affordability. And all you need to do is adopt an ordinance, right? There's, at the Casita Coalition, where I'm the board chair, we worked with attorneys to draft a sample ordinance so the cities don't have to start from scratch.
Oh, that's what I was going to ask. If how long did that process take, and do you have to get petitions from other neighbors to get this going, or?
Yeah, no. So the way that process goes is a council member or a supervisor, depending on whether you're in the city or the county, would bring it forth to a committee, and they would make a decision on, hey, do we explore this or not? In San Diego County, the Board of Supervisors has already agendized it, brought the conversation up, and they voted, let's direct staff to explore this. The county has already done some focus groups where they've invited the community to give their feedback. So they're actively exploring the possibility. No guarantees, but hey, it's a start. You got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
So that's what we hope that other smaller cities throughout the county, what we hope bigger cities like San Diego and Chula Vista, that they'll see that this is something important and they'll also take action.
So even while the city of San Diego is already exploring this, is it still, important for community to make those phone calls, send those emails, or?
Absolutely. There's nowhere in the county in Southern California where you can go and get a permit today for an ADU condo. Northern California, San Jose's adopted it. Berkeley's on the way. They've already voted it in. And other cities are following. But until your city or your county adopts it, it's absolutely important to let your elected officials know this is something that could really benefit the community. It's something that really solves a problem we have out there with the affordable homeownership crisis. And it creates jobs, it creates places for people to live. All the things that everybody is saying is important, this does, and all we need to do is have people adopt the local ordinance.
Yeah, and there's so many great things to this. And earlier you also mentioned that you still find folks that are against this. And so what would you say to somebody, maybe what are some of the opposition points, or what would you say to somebody who thinks this isn't a good idea?
Well, I'd say here in San Diego, one of the big kind of pain points when you say ADU that kind of gets some people excited is, when you talk about the ADU bonus program. But for the most part, because financing on ADU condos is going to be most readily available at 4 units or less, most of the cities that are discussing that aren't looking at this as a way to have multi-unit developments. It's, 2, 3, 4 unit condo complexes, smaller developments, whatever's already allowed. And, that does keep it within the box that still has traditional, conventional financing available. Okay. Condo unit developments of 4 units or less are subject to a lot of the waivers that larger condo developments need to do when they're new construction. So it makes conventional financing more readily available. When we were in the process of passing the bill, we reached out to FHFA in Washington, D.C., said, hey, if you have a thing that used to be an ADU and then it becomes a condo, is it still going to be treated like a regular condo for financing? I said, yeah, if it's in a 4-unit or less development, absolutely. Unless the rules change, of course, they got to throw their disclaimer in there. Financing will be available. So that was one of the reasons that legislators felt comfortable passing this, because they thought, okay, This is going to benefit homeowners. This is going to have financing for first-time home buyers. That's what we want to happen if we pass this bill.
Okay. And now to get back to, where we were going with this. So say there's an opt-in in San Diego. What are some things that homeowners should keep in mind if they're exploring this? If they're already thinking about building an ADU, or, maybe investors, developers that are already thinking about building an ADU, what should they keep in mind? And what are some of the potential roadblocks too if we're in an HOA? I think that's what we were kind of talking about earlier.
Right.
Yeah, so for starters, if your home is already in an HOA, then your HOA also needs to opt in. So for those of you that are in an HOA, I wouldn't get too excited about the opportunity.
Right.
For everybody else that's not in an HOA,
yeah.
Your first step is really assessing the site, and if you haven't built an ADU yet, determining, where that gets placed, what size you make it, what amenities it has access to. And this is not a one-size-fits-all solution, right? So a lot of times people think, oh, well, it's not going to have a big yard, or it's, not going to have access. It's just going to be this little ADU in the corner. And that may be the case. Or it could be there. I've seen some ADUs that look way nicer than the actual house that it's built behind. Right? They have a beautiful yard. They got plenty of land. They got a garage. They got parking. It's brand new ADU, 1,200 square feet. So one of the considerations is going to be, what kind of value are you looking to get out of the ADU, or are you looking to get the value out of the single family home that already exists? Right? Because that's a moving target. Where are you, if the intent is to sell one of the units, which there's very few reasons somebody would do this other than to sell one of the units, is what are your goals? Are you trying to let go of as little bit of property as possible? That's the case. Stick your ADU in the corner, give it a small yard, and you don't give up too much property. It's also going to lower the value of that ADU, right? Small yard, back in the corner, poor access. It's not going to be as valuable. Or you're like, I'm trying to extract as much equity as possible. Well, you may stick the ADU right in the middle of the backyard, give it a large yard, give it good access to parking and entrances and everything. So it's a sliding scale. The more attractive you make whatever unit you're going to sell, the more valuable it's going to be. And I think that's what a lot of the legislators that were voting on this last year had a hard time wrapping their head around is, but wait, what happens if there's a one-car driveway? Who gets it? It's like, well, whoever files the condo map is going to make that decision, and that decision is going to ultimately determine whether it's a very attractive unit that looks and feels very much like a single-family home, or whether it's really a small studio-like apartment that's going to be more affordable. Right? Both have benefits. One creates inventory that's much needed. The other one creates an affordable inventory type that there's very little of. So I think that's the beauty of an ADU condo, is you're not just going to pop out one type of unit into the market. It's going to have a wide range, ranging from the small studio in the corner of the lot with no yard to this beautiful house that looks nicer than the house in front of it.
Gotcha.
Right?
And that makes sense too, because we were talking, I think yesterday, about building on top of the garage, but the owner of the main house wants the garage for themselves, but they want to sell the condo. So that will all be mapped out in the condo agreement.
Yeah, so an attorney comes in, they draft the CC&Rs, the rules of the road for that mini HOA, and they've been through this so many times that they know what's already just needs to be included in there. California has very specific condo laws. The Davis-Sterling Act mandates what has to go into an HOA and how it gets run. So a lot of this is already figured out for people by state law. And an attorney comes in and helps create these documents that help future owners forever forward navigate the rules of the road. Now, going back to the idea that there's a wide spectrum, some are going to feel like a single-family home and some are going to feel like an apartment. The rules are going to reflect that as well, right? So if you don't share anything but a fence, there's not much need for HOA fees and HOA dues. Maybe you have a small insurance policy and maintaining that fence you're going to have relatively low HOAs. $50, $40, $30 is what we've seen in some of these condos, ADU condos, where the HOA that gets created has very little need. It's a vehicle to hold the rules and maintain a fence. And then others that may have a more complicated layout, they may be an attached unit, there's some shared walls, maybe there's a shared roof. Those HOAs will be structured to accommodate that. They'll have higher HOA fees, more affordable price points, right? So all these different decisions are kind of tossed into a bucket, and what comes out is the value. Those are all value decisions that a homeowner is going to make. One of the other unique things about AB 1033, unlike SB 9 that requires an owner-occupant be the one to develop the second unit or do the lot split, AB 1033 doesn't have that requirement. So there's also an opportunity for investors to come in, build the units, and make both of them available for first-time home buyers. The sample ordinance we've drafted at the Casita Coalition does have a provision in there that encourages cities to make it a priority for the resale units to go to first-time home buyers, maybe give them a 45-day first look window, something like that. Wow. So we're hoping that cities really prioritize first-time home buyers, owner-occupants, and the ultimate end users of this. But we didn't want that to be a roadblock and actually have them getting built, which is why there is no owner-occupancy requirement to be able to file a condo map.
Yeah. Wow. Now let's talk about how this will benefit yourself, real estate agents. Like how can they go forward and talk? Because again, you have a homeowner that's doing all this thing, or even looking to buy. Mm-hmm. How will this benefit or give somebody that's go to a listing appointment and talk a little bit more about this?
Right.
Has a great opportunity to make this part of their kind of their selling point. Like, you work with me,
long-term plan.
Yeah,
right?
Their long-term plan. Have you had any talks with real estate agents now on getting that in their farm?
Yeah. So, assuming your city and your farm has adopted this ordinance, and you can now sell ADU condos. There's two groups we'll talk about. One is homeowners listing potential. If you look out in the market today, there's the majority of listings you see, somebody got a divorce, somebody died, somebody got relocated, major life event happened, they had to move. And then you have the other 90-something% of the market that life is okay. They have an interest rate below 4%. They got some equity in their home. They have a payment that's cheaper than what a lot of people are paying in rent. Mm-hmm. They may want a different house. They may want another neighborhood. They may want a smaller house, a bigger house. They're not going anywhere because they're locked in to a 2.99%,
hear it all the time.
30-year fixed, and they're essentially stuck into the deal they got because they can't find something better, right? So the only way somebody would actually want to get rid of a interest rate in the 2% in many cases is if they can just eliminate the mortgage, right? So that's an incentive for some people. It's like, oh, well, I don't have to move. I can cash out some equity, and I can pay off that mortgage. The second group is those that have enough equity. They may not be able to actually pay off the mortgage. They may not want to. If there's enough equity, they can go to their servicer, and the servicer is allowed to approve the condo map because the remaining unit is going to still be secured by enough equity to still secure their investment and allow the map to be recorded. That's a lot less likely than somebody that's got their home owned free and clear, but it's possible. And we've heard confirmation that the servicers are legally allowed to do so. Third group would be investor comes in, they got the cash, they own the property, they're going to develop an ADU, file the map, sell both. So that's sort of who can benefit there as a seller is investors, people who don't have a mortgage, or people that have equity and have a servicer that's going to give them the flexibility to record the condo map and sell off the ADU. Next group that this could benefit is buyers, right? Two types. One, the buyer's looking at this, they're seeing interest rates where they're at today, and they're thinking, man, that's going to be a a pretty substantial mortgage payment. I can qualify, I can afford it, but do I really want to get into this? I don't know. That's a lot of money. But you look at a property and you see some potential, but it's on a corner lot. It's got a big yard. I can see an ADU over there. Maybe someday I'll build an ADU. Maybe someday I'll sell the ADU. And there's a pathway to a better future ahead, even though you're getting in at a time where rates aren't attractive as they have been. Prices continue to climb. Inventory continues to be constrained. So having this possibility available may not make home more affordable today, but it gives people hope. It gives people a pathway. It gives people a plan to do something down the road.
Yeah.
And then the third buyer is the bravest, I would say, is somebody who sees the potential. They see that they can have this now, but they're going to have to brave the storm of developing, building, and constructing an ADU. And those are the buyers that are going to go out. They're going to find a property, probably something that's got orange carpet and some old cabinets.
Right.
But they're going to see the potential. They can get a renovation loan, finance an ADU into the purchase of the home, and start their home ownership journey out the gate with the subsidy from being able to rent that ADU and the possibility of someday down the road selling it separate from the home. So there's, once again, a wide range of possibilities from somebody who's got their home owned free and clear, already has an ADU, just needs to cash out on some equity, doesn't want to get rid of that mortgage or wants to eliminate it, to the other extreme is first-time home buyer, sees the potential, wants a house, wants an ADU, wants it all, gets one loan, gets it done. That's I could say that's the bravest buyer, because it's not easy to build a new home. It's not easy to go and deal with permits. It's not easy to do all this, plan all this out, budget for it all before you even own the home.
Right.
So.
Even having that vision, and I like that the awareness is, well, we're getting the awareness out. I mean, just here today, and like the platforms that you go on to as well, because real estate agents need to go into helping people buy homes, with this intention. Right.
Yeah, with that long-term plan in mind, and it just speaks to the crucial role that agents play. And so, unless there's something else that you think it's important to mention about this law, how can agents continue to stay on top of this, informed, and really at the forefront, since, we're still, you could say, in the early stages, to make this happen and start having those smart conversations with their clients and be prepared for that when the time comes.
Right.
So I think one of the most unfortunate things about this is when somebody's writing a story on this, sometimes they go straight to the source. They go to the author of the bill. They call the Casita Coalition, and I get contacted to do an interview. But other times they'll call random realtor in a random city who knows nothing about this and get their opinion.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So there's a lot of misinformation out there. So I'd say if you're any real estate professional or any homeowner and you just want to better educate yourself on ADU law in general, or AB 1033 specifically, you can go to casitacoalition.org. We have a ton of resources out there. We have webinars on this. We have that are recorded and uploaded. So there's tools out there. There's a copy of the sample ordinance if a city wants to look at that. We're available when cities have questions about adopting this. They've reached out, invited us in to have a meeting with their planning staff to kind of ask a lot of the questions, like how does this work? What was the intent behind that? So, first and foremost, I think the resources out there, we put them out there to get people educated. Secondly, don't be making stuff up.
Don't Google it and then think you're right. Yeah.
People Google, they find some blog post that somebody wrote an opinion on, and you take it as fact, and now you're putting bad information out there.
Right.
As soon as this passed, I saw realtors going online saying, I can help you sell your ADU as a condo. There's this new law that makes it possible.
Oh, no.
This was January 2024. We're halfway through the year, and only in the last few days has a city even made it possible, and that's one city, San Jose, right? So we're not there yet.
Right.
We're going there, educate people, let people start planning, but don't go out saying, I can help you with this today, because more than likely it's not accurate.
Yeah.
So that's the start, right? Get informed, educate yourself, and put out good information. If you're unsure,
Call your representatives.
Yeah. Second, call your representatives, call your elected officials, tell them, hey, we need this, help us out.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. I got a quick question as a consumer, like what are the costs going into an ADU if I want to, explore that? What is the average cost? Are there any grants or programs that can help with those costs?
So the state of California has deployed grants to help homeowners with the soft costs of ADUs. $25,000 to cover architect fees, permits, plans. Those funds are exhausted, and there isn't any in the budget right now. Mm-hmm. But that helps so many homeowners be able to just take that step, create ADUs.
Yeah.
And we're now seeing the success stories pop out of the ground and be built. People have keys and people living in them, renting them, family members, living in them. So there has been programs in the past. A lot of lenders are out there looking for creative ways to create new programs to fund the construction of ADUs. There's a lot of innovation in the ADU construction space. Some people still prefer stick built on a slab foundation, and other ADUs are coming out of factories. They're prefab ADUs that get assembled on site, cuts down on cost, cuts down on time, cuts down on the impact to the neighborhood while these are being built, and everything in between, right? So there's a lot of innovation being created by this new industry. I say new, but relatively new compared to traditional construction,
right?
And where there's innovation and where there's all these new technologies, it's going to create efficiencies, and that'll create affordability. So to answer your question, it's you can spend $500,000 on an ADU, right, or you can get one out of a box for less than $100,000. A lot of variables that go into it, but
like you said, it's what you want, what you're planning on seeing in return later.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
you get out what you put into it, and that goes for planning it, for thinking about it, setting your goals for it, and then executing on it, right?
Yeah, and if I'm a homeowner and I already have an existing ADU, you touched a little bit on there are already regulations in place, like these things need to be implemented or included in the build out of your ADU. And then there's also junior ADUs, and you can educate me a bit on that too. Those don't apply here in this case, right?
It's going to come down to local ordinance, right? So one of the reasons that it's subject to local adoption is because every city's got different rules. San Diego's ADU policy is going to be different than Chula Vista's, and it's going to be different than La Mesa's.
Okay.
So as a local city or county adopts their ordinance, they're going to look, okay, well, we allow this, we allow that. We're going to allow it on junior ADUs and regular ADUs. We're not going to allow it on junior ADUs. Those need to stay junior ADU to the house, but you can condo the ADU, right? Those decisions are going to be made at the local level based on that community's needs and that community's appetite for ADU condos. So.
Got it.
Do you have any insight, as being a realtor as well, of where, I want you to kind of map out where this would benefit the most? Like what county, what city in San Diego or even California that you think that's maybe already close or that would benefit because of more lot sizes or larger?
Yeah, I mean, the cities that have built the most ADUs are the ones that are going to benefit. They already have the inventory just sitting there ready to be unlocked.
What cities are those?
Right. So, there's cities around. San Diego has done a great job of getting ADUs built. Thousands permitted every year.
Yeah. Starting
from, dozens back when ADU law first started changing to now thousands per year, right? Over 2,000. So cities where there's already been that kind of construction production is going to have all that inventory sitting there available to be unlocked. There's other cities, like smaller cities, that have just had a lot of ADUs being built, like Santa Maria, California, up on the Central Coast. Cities like San Jose have really adopted very pro-ADU housing policies, which is why they were the first to adopt AB 1033. So there's cities that are examples all over the state, and the ones that are going to be ripe to benefit from this are the ones that have already built a lot more ADUs, outpacing the rest of the state. But cities that haven't built a lot of ADUs could also benefit, right? It's,
right.
You may live in, a rural part of San Diego County, if the county adopts it, you may be sitting on 15 acres with a single family home.
Yeah.
You could stick your ADU 5 acres away.
Yeah.
Well, it's something I'm thinking of, like Temecula, even like, out there getting a second home and like, splitting those lots are big.
And the same is true for the urban area, right? The need for urban infill, close to transit, close to work, close to job centers. There's a need there too, right? So this is going to have a different impact and a different resulting type of unit, depending on that. So I wouldn't say that it's better or worse in rural or urban or suburban environments. I think they're all going to have different ways that this pops up, and it's going to be up to each city to look at their dynamics and determine what kind of ordinance is best for us.
Well, I think it's really amazing. I think for those that know you, we have always known how civically involved you've been, and it's amazing the work that you're doing. And thank you again for hanging out with us today and putting this information out. And I'm sure, from this podcast, we could have a lot more questions that come up that we didn't think about today. And we'd love to have you come back, and maybe, if anybody watching is interested in, putting a panel together of experts on this topic where you can get your questions answered and get empowered, whether it's to disseminate this information or reach out to your own local officials, elected officials. Maybe hopefully you'd be open to that.
Yeah,
and
let's get
comment
this
below.
Yeah, let's get this set up. We'll host it. Let's get it going.
I would love to.
Yeah.
I mean, this is not a moment, it's a movement, right? In order to get momentum, you need backup. So would absolutely love my colleagues out there to get behind this with me and help push it along and make this possible, because it's just going to create opportunity where it doesn't exist.
Right. And you being on this platform has definitely like opened our eyes to it. I've learned a lot more just from speaking to you in the last 2 days. Like, this is great.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to see what this creates. And most excited for that person that gets to become a homeowner that otherwise wouldn't have that opportunity. Yeah. Right? Before it's too late, before prices get too high, before they're locked out.
100%.
So that's the urgency. Is there's some people that can get into homeownership if we do this now. They may not have that opportunity if we wait 5 years.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm from Arizona, and in 5 years, it's going to be unlivable there. So we're going to see that flood of people still coming out here because the heat is just so bad. Right. But, if you don't mind, will you look in this camera and tell everybody where they can find you? Yeah,
you can email me, Rafael@thehomemap.com, or call me 619-333-0116. Available anytime. It's just questions, other realtors. I get realtors message me all the time asking me about, hey, how does AB 1033 work? Can I do this? Where is it happening? Or consumers are just wondering, hey, what can I do with my home? I mean, I got the knowledge, and I'm glad to share it.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks again, Rafael. Thank you, Dre, for bringing him on. This has been super informative. We're going to get this information out as quick as possible. Yeah, of course. We're just, That's awesome. Well, for everybody who wants to find this podcast, the full podcast will be on YouTube for video. You can Spotify, all the major streaming platforms for just the audio if you're in your car and just listening to it. But yeah, please see us. Come back again, please. We're going to get him on a panel soon, so stay tuned for that. Anything else, Dre?
Thank you all.
All right.
This is fun.
Yeah, this is fun. All right.
First one down.
Yeah, first one. And there's many more to come, right? All right, stay tuned for what's next.